Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. So my name's Rhiannon Markwell. I'm from the Future Students Engagement team at the University of Tasmania. And obviously we're joined by the lovely Christopher Burridge from the Diploma of Sustainable Living as well. So we are going to be talking about both the undergraduate certificate and the Diploma of Sustainable Living this evening. We'll be talking about general course information as well as how to apply and next steps if you are interested in pursuing this course. So I will just kick it off as I'm conscious that we're a couple of minutes past 4 p.m. And for particularly those of you with small children, I know that it's a tricky time of day if you need to get back to dinner time and whatnot. So we'll just get started with an acknowledgement of country. So obviously, Christopher and I are based in Hobart, and we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Palawa people today in Lutruwita. So we would like to pay respects to the elders past and present as the knowledge holders and sharers, and we do honour their strong culture and knowledges as vital to the self-determination, well-being and resilience of our communities. We stand for a future that profoundly respects and acknowledges Aboriginal perspectives, culture, language and history. So welcome from wherever you are joining. So as I mentioned today, we will be covering study at the University of Tasmania and perhaps why you might choose to study with us, specifically why you would choose to study sustainable living, what will be included in studying that particular qualification, the difference between the undergraduate certificate and the diploma of sustainable living, what can lead from both the undergraduate certificate and the diploma, any student support that's available both online and in person. We will also be discussing the cost of the course, including the 100% HEX scholarship that is available for this particular qualification, which is really, really great. We'll talk about how to apply, and we'll also open it up for questions at the end. If you would like to ask any questions as we go through the presentation today, please feel free to do so. My colleague Charlotte will be manning the Q&A, so she'll be typing responses in there throughout the session. So please just do use the Q&A button down the bottom as opposed to the chat screen. All right, so a couple of reasons why we might choose to study at the University of Tasmania is we do have excellent student experience survey results. So these ones are from 2022, so a couple of years ago now, but we do have, as you can see, above average student satisfaction compared to nationally. And this is in comparison to other mainland universities. So particularly with regard to our teaching quality, our graduate outcomes in terms of full-time employment is particularly strong. And we do provide a lot of student support. As Chris will talk to you about through the course, the lecturers and academics at University of Tasmania do get to know their students very, very well, are a wonderful source of support, as well as all of our wellbeing supports as well. We are also consistently ranked #1 in the world for climate action, which is a really great one to point out considering we are talking about sustainability this evening. So I would like to just hand over in a moment to Chris, who is the course coordinator for the Diploma of Sustainable Living, and he'll be talking you through a bit more of the nitty-gritty regarding what you will be studying and how the courses sort of flow, and as well as the outcomes for both the diploma and the undergraduate certificate of sustainable living. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Yeah, it's my pleasure to talk to you today about the Diploma of Sustainable Living, one of our real success stories here at the University of Tasmania, and something we're very passionate about. Tasmania is obviously that little green corner of the country, both green in terms of its vegetation and its climate, but also in terms of its sustainability. Next slide, thanks. But before I tell you about it, I'll just paraphrase from one of our previous graduates. This is Kelly, and she found the Diploma of Sustainable Living fascinating. So much of it was already familiar to me, like reduce, reuse, recycle, but she also experienced frustration that there were so many other concepts and strategies that she'd never heard of until she went to university to study them. So yeah, we all have an idea about what sustainability is and the little things that we can do, but it's actually a much broader field where we can have an impact on the sustainability of our own lives and those of those people around us. Thank you. Next slide. So why study sustainable living? Someone once said to me, sustainable living is a bit like teenage sex. Everyone says they're doing it, but actually most people aren't, and those that are not doing it very well. So why study it? So you want to improve your sustainability in the environment. You want to improve or reduce the impact that you have, so you can make a practical approach to your lives and those of people around you by expanding your toolkit of sustainability in your home, your community, and your workplace. We'll use some contemporary case studies and draw from our research in sustainability here at the University of Tasmania. So a lot of what we teach you is actually what we're also studying here in terms of climate emissions and impacts. And likewise, we have a genuine sustainability, a genuine passion for sustainability. So many of our staff, this is why they came to UTAS, because they know that we have this #1 global ranking in sustainability. And as Rhiannon mentions, this course has been awarded several prizes in this space. So what I'll tell you briefly about now is the structure of these courses. So we've got 2 courses. I've mostly been saying Diploma of Sustainable Living, but there's also the undergraduate certificate in sustainability. And both of these involve you undertaking what at UTAS we call units, and these are essentially just classes or topics. And you will learn through a mixture of methods. So obviously this is a qualification that you can do remotely. So there'll be a component of online learning or self-directed learning. But there's also a range of face-to-face or interactive activities that we run within each of our units, and a different variety of assessment types. So just running through that, some of our classes will be online. Some of them you might be interacting with your peers, either with your lecturer or remotely from your lecturer. There'll be self-directed content, and if you're doing other things in your life, well, that's really good. You can pace yourself and fit your learning and your teaching activity, your learning activities in amongst your usual schedule. And we use an online platform called Milo. It's very similar to other platforms used by universities around Australia and indeed around the world. And across the different units, we'll have different types of assessment as well. So some assessment tasks will be, just immediately assessing your knowledge based on what you've been learning or reading. So it could be quizzes or portfolios, and also participation in group discussions. We have a really good support team, as Rhiannon mentioned. So that little email address down there, dsl@utas.edu.au, that's manned around the clock, more or less. And you'll get very rapid feedback from that. There's also a phone number there. So if you want to talk to a real person, that is the direct line to the DSL staff. You won't be sent off to some random switchboard. And we can help you with everything from enrolment all the way through to your exit from the qualification in terms of your result. So you have several points of contact for each unit. You'll have your lecturer as one point of contact, but you've also got this generic DSL address as well. Okay, so the structure of these courses. So there's 2 courses, the undergraduate certificate and the diploma. And they're similar, but different. And importantly, so I don't forget mentioning it later, you can transition between the 2. So you could start off in the undergraduate certificate, which involves taking 4 units in total. And one of those units is a core unit, which I'll detail in a second. And then you choose 3 electives from a total of 13 that we currently offer. Ostensibly, the undergraduate certificate is 6 months full-time or 1 year part-time. But if circumstances intervene and you need an extension and you need a bit more time, that can usually be accommodated. So that's the undergraduate certificate. Now, the diploma is essentially twice the workload, so 8 units in total. You'll do 2 core units, and you can choose 6 electives from a total of 20 that are offered. Important to note, many of our units are offered multiple times per year, so that creates a lot of flexibility in the units that you can take and when you can take them. So the diploma is 1 year full-time or up to 3 years part-time. Rhiannon will talk in more detail about the HEC scholarship a bit later, but we've got some entry requirements there. And again, we accept applicants from a range of different backgrounds. So maybe you've completed a TCE at some point, maybe you've conducted some undergraduate study already, or you've completed a Certificate 3 or other higher education sort of qualification. Alternatively, you could write us a bit of a narrative about your competency in the field. So maybe, perhaps you're already employed as someone involved in the sustainability sustainability sphere at a local council or shire, and therefore you've got a suitable background for this sort of course. Okay, so core units. So in the undergraduate certificate, you do one core unit and then you choose 3 electives. In the diploma, you do 2 core units. So in the undergraduate certificate, the core unit is communicating sustainability. So communication is a very desirable skill, and this is why it's core in the undergraduate certificate. So you learn how to effectively communicate with others about sustainability issues. You'll learn the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which I think there are still 12, and how to critically appraise information and determine its validity. So that's the core unit, in the only core unit in the undergraduate certificate, but it is also core for the diploma. In the diploma, you'll also do a core unit at the very end of your diploma. So it's kind of like a capstone unit, and you will learn how to apply the learnings from across your entire field of study in the diploma in your own life, and make contributions to the wider community, and look at how social change works and what you can do to drive it. So that's sort of our capstone unit. So in the diploma, you'll be doing both of those. In the undergraduate certificate, you'll start only with the first one, communicating sustainability. So then in terms of electives, so you're going to choose 3 electives if you're in the undergraduate certificate, or 6 if you are in the diploma. And here's a list of units that we currently offer. Some of those have the little asterisks next to them, and that means that they're only available in the diploma. So they're kind of more higher level units than the undergraduate certificate. And these units cover a range of spheres. So those that are more focused in your local environment, like your backyard. So backyard biodiversity is a unit I've previously taught, and I'm currently teaching living with fire as well. So you could have other units that are more global in their perspective, so global food security, and then sustainable societies, so things that are involving working or interacting with others. So a wide range of units there. Again, many of them are offered multiple times per year, which gives you flexibility in when you can take those units. And then when you finish either your undergraduate certificate or diploma, there are other things you can move on to. So as I said earlier, if you start with the undergraduate certificate and then you want to transition to the diploma, you can certainly do that. So you'll receive the credit from the 4 units you've already conducted or completed in the Diploma of Sustainable Living. So then you'll only need another 4 to upgrade your qualification to the diploma. If you finish the diploma, obviously then that's 8 units, and that can also give you credit into a Bachelor of Science here at the University of Tasmania with a sustainability major. So we actually have a 3-year undergraduate course with a focus on sustainability that gets you a Bachelor of Science qualification. And you may also be eligible into other undergraduate degrees here or elsewhere in that regard. And then career outcomes, well, sustainability is obviously globally very significant. So graduates have seen career benefits in government and industry, and that's only likely to increase into the future.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm here to talk about probably the nuts and bolts portion of studying at university, specifically at UTAS. So specifically for the diploma and the undergraduate certificate of sustainable living, they are covered under what we call the 100% tuition fee scholarship, or the HEX scholarship. So essentially what that means is you can study these qualifications without cost if you are a domestic student. So this also does cover your student services and amenities fees, as they can be deferred to HEX, and they work out to be about $50 per semester or so. So that can also be covered under this 100% HEX scholarship. So This is confirmed for 2026 that this will be continuing. So if you are keen to apply to study either the undergraduate certificate or the diploma in sustainable living for 2026, we can expect this 100% fee waiver, HEX scholarship to continue for that period of time. Obviously, that is evaluated year on year. And so we would find out towards the end of 2026 if that is going to continue for 2027. If it wasn't to continue for 2027 and you had already commenced in the diploma, you could, of course, make the choice to exit early with the undergraduate certificate to get your study done under that 100% HEX scholarship. You will need to complete a Commonwealth Assistance form on enrolment. We call it an ECAF. It's a generic form that all students complete, and this relates to how your HEX is paid for or deferred, but certainly these units do not incur a HEX fee for domestic students, as I said. Oh, there we go. It's very easy to apply online. On our UTAS webpage, there's a big old red apply button, and you can click on that and enter your personal details through there. And it's about a 5-step process that can take about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what your qualifications are and what information you might need to enter into that application. If you would like any assistance with the application process itself or enrolment, choosing your units, the Future Students Engagement Team is available either to do over the phone appointments if you're interstate, or certainly if you are in Tasmania, you can come onto campus at either Cradle Coast campus, Launceston, or Hobart, and we can assist you in person as well. So I believe our booking link will be sent out with the information provided to attendees at the end of the webinar in a few days' time. So if your application is successful, you will receive a letter of offer to your email, and you can accept your offers via the application portal through the webpage. Once you've accepted your offer, you will then actually be able to enroll in your units. And as Chris mentioned, there will be some core units that you will need to enroll in for either the undergraduate certificate or the diploma. But if you would like some help choosing your electives and things like that, again, our team can assist you with that. All right, so we seem to have breezed through this very, very quickly. I might just stop sharing in a moment and just open it up for any questions about either the course, about the University of Tasmania, or applying in general or enrolling. So I'll just stop sharing so I can jump into that Q&A, and we can call on Chris or myself or Charlotte to answer any of the questions that you might have.
We don't have any open questions at the moment, but I would like to follow up on one that I have answered, if that's all right, Chris. To your extent, do you know how many of the units would have an actual attendance requirement, like so signing on to an online webinar or tutorial? I know it does vary unit to unit, but off the top of your head, do you know of any that do have some sort of attendance for online students?
Yes, so often the attendance is voluntary. I'm currently, or have previously taught backyard biodiversity and currently teaching living with fire. And in both of those classes, I have 4 face-to-face opportunities for students. And yeah, the time zones are a bit interesting because obviously we've got students from Western Australia and Queensland that are different time zones, Adelaide, of course, South Australia, different to Tasmania. So yeah, we try to offer time zone or times for events that are flexible, and the classes that we conduct are, recorded just like this session. So if you miss them, you can still watch the recordings. If there's questions that arise from those activities, you can get in touch with the lecturing staff. So it's not like you're a second class student if you cannot make those times in the particular units. Sometimes units will have more opportunities for a given class than others, and that's also dictated by enrolment. So if we've got a large enrolment class, we might offer more opportunities for students because we don't want big, unwieldy sort of class sizes online as well.
One of the questions I might pose, because I have actually looked into some of the sustainable living units recently as well, is for someone that has no background studying science, how, I guess, sciencey or science heavy is the course, and how confident would someone feel, perhaps if they haven't done any tertiary study or any higher education in the sciences, how confident would they be about undertaking some of these units?
Yeah, so there's science written in the title for several of these units. But the inception of the DSL, or even before the DSL was um, developed, in my department, biological sciences, we had a desire to offer a unit called the Science of Gardening. And the target audience for that was literally your average backyard gardener, that might like to know more about how plants grow, things about plant nutrients, hydration, these sorts of things. So it was basically pitched at an entry point where people, knew what plants were and what they look like, but didn't necessarily have any background in science and chemistry in particular, which is something, most people kind of shy away from if they're not already happy with science. So yeah, it's taking a really broad background audience and giving them the opportunity to learn about the science of plant growth, the science of fishing, and then obviously there's also all the other units that don't have any what you might call hard science in them at all. They might be more about societies or global supply chains and food security. So yeah, don't be afraid if the word science appears in a unit, or you struggled with science in grade 11 or 12.
Thank you.
And I've just got a question, might as well answer this one live. Other than the required unit, is there a recommended pathway for students to enroll in? So you'd need to do Science of Gardening 1 before you could do Science of Gardening 2. But other than that sort of prerequisite rule, do you have a guideline that you tend to give students enrolling as to how they progress through the diploma?
Yeah, so we basically have a timetable available. So students, I mean, that's the main issue, making sure students can do Science of Gardening 1 before Science of Gardening 2, or those few examples of units where one is sort of the prerequisite for the other. Students, if they're interested in, if they have an interest more on the societal side of sustainability than the science side, they can basically pick and choose the units that suit their interests. Obviously, we're more than happy to talk to students and provide recommendations in terms of exact pathways or combinations of units that might work well together if they're interested in that advice and feedback. But in most instances, it's the students, choosing the units that appeal to them, and we sort of encourage that and allow that, rather than giving too many sort of prescriptive, if you want to be a more local community sustainability person, you should do this combination. If you want to focus more on just your own property or your own backyard, you should focus on these units. And people's interests might change during the course of study as well. So it's entirely flexible, other than those units that have a prerequisite. So Science of Gardening 2, you have to do Science of Gardening 1 first.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that you do a pretty extensive orientation for students coming into the diploma as well to help them navigate all of that enrolment and things.
Yeah. So once you receive your offer into the course, either the undergraduate certificate or the diploma, then obviously you have to pick and choose your units.
So I can just see that a question's come into the chat, and Charlotte, I can see that you're perhaps answering that one already. Do units have group work and group discussion? For instance, in backyard biodiversity, Chris, in the unit that you teach?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. We didn't used to have this, but now we do provide an opportunity for students to engage more with their peers. This is something students said, it would be really nice if I knew who was in my area and what sort of projects they were working on. So we've now got facilities in which we can promote that. We also have to be a little bit careful about protecting people's, sort of personal information as well. So that's sort of a voluntary uptake. So if you're interested in interacting more with your peers and sharing ideas, that's possible, mostly sort of in the online space, however, in most instances.
What sort of cohort sizes are we looking at for these units being fully online? I'm assuming they come from across Australia.
Yeah, so across Australia, so my current Living with Fire unit, and I don't know whether it's got high popularity because we're coming into summer, but that has about 100 students. Some of the other units, the bigger units, are Backyard Biodiversity and Science of Gardening. They can have up to 300 in a semester or in an offering. The first time we ran Science of Gardening, we had over 1,000 students. Yeah, so that's a lot of opportunity for peer networking online if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah.
One of the questions I sort of have is, obviously we are quite place-based with our university, and certainly our course offering and sustainability is very, very strong in Tasmania especially. For our interstate students, in terms of a unit like Backyard Biodiversity and Science of Gardening, and possibly even Living with Fire, as we've seen recently in the news, the springtime climate can be vastly different depending where you live in this beautiful country of ours. How does the course or the units specifically sort of cater to that climate variation across locations?
Yeah, so it would be good question. It would be remiss of us to have a gardening, Science of Gardening based unit that focus on temperate climates of 40 degrees latitude. So yeah, the concepts that we cover in units like that are broadly applicable to a range of climates. So they would be highlighting, matching the plants you grow to the environment in which you're currently living. So keeping everything broad and relevant to a wide audience. Living with fire, I mean, that's an interesting one in that our fire regimes and history and use of fire varies dramatically across the country. So at sort of higher latitudes, we have the damaging summer fires, but in the tropical north, fire has a completely different context into those societies and communities. So we're also, again, keeping everything as inclusive and broadly applicable as we can in this quite diverse country, ranging from 40 degrees south to virtually right to the equator.
And just building on from the sciencey, I guess, knowledge, we've just had someone ask about how much technical knowledge is required for the units about sustainable design for houses. So the follow-on, the introduction and the follow-on unit, do students need a sort of technical background in architecture or anything like that for those sorts of units?
Yeah, so I'm not so familiar with the architecture unit. I had some interactions with the teaching staff there. I mean, again, if you've got an interest in that space, you'll be better prepared. But if you've come in totally naive and you're like, I know nothing about architecture or aspect or building products or materials or double glazing, all those sorts of things. Again, it's a bit like the Science of Gardening. We're trying to make it accessible to anyone, regardless of their level of background and input. And the teaching materials, the online teaching materials, someone that's more proficient might go through them quite quickly. Maybe they don't have to click links to go and look at external resources because they already know those sorts of attributes of building design and materials. But for other students, those links are there and they might be highly relevant.
I think one thing is we can stress is there's lots of support for students as well going through these units.
So we've just had a question pop in from Alison. Are there any units that deal with the scope of carbon emissions from an accounting perspective? Chris, do you have any insight?
I can't remember the exact name of the unit, but yes. So that's a space that's obviously developing very rapidly, and it's an important component of sustainability moving forward, more on the business side. So some of our units have input from our School of Business here at the University of Tasmania. So obviously now they're starting to articulate with sort of things like capital accounting, capital carbon accounting, That varies globally, and obviously Australia's sort of a little bit behind the curve in that space, but that's an area where, yeah, we're trying to stay in touch with what's going on locally and keep students prepared for that environment and that future environment as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we might just give it a few more moments for any last questions to drop in.
The carbon accounting also comes into things like, you know, replanting and subsidies and those sorts of concepts as well. So I think that'll be a real growth area for small businesses, large businesses, landowners into the future.
So Clarissa's just asked, and this might be a great question for you, Chris, is lots of people will be attempting to integrate sustainability into their workplace. How is that, I guess, touched on in the course, or is the focus more on personal living, which I suppose is interesting given that UTAS as a workplace and as an institution is very focused on implementing sustainability, but we also offer this course as well. So would you like to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so across the breadth of units that we have, you know, there was the core units there, or the units that were focused on sort of your backyard or your local environment. Then those that were a bit more broadly, so they're more workplace orientated. And yeah, there's little things obviously you could do that kind of merge across the two, like you could set up your little composting thing in your tea room at work. But the workplace things, you know, some of the things that we've investigated at the university are things like how you're, you know, managing your vehicle fleet, and your transport solutions, your offsets, any new sort of work that you're doing, thinking about building design, thinking about environmental costs associated with maintaining an existing structure versus replacing that structure. So that's sort of covered in that sort of middle set of units that we have offered, that are more sort of in the workplace, the professional sphere, and going from the individual person and the individual changes you can make in your own environment at home, to those that are more broad and society based.
Different question for you now. What sort of career, if you have any insights, have previous graduates of the diploma moved into? Like, have they been able to attain jobs in local government or something like that you're aware of?
Yeah, so it's quite varied, and I think across employers generally, like even if you've got a specific qualification, whether it's accounting or finance or something like that, this is something that you can take into any workplace environment and say, hey, look, yeah, I've got the skills I need or the formal qualification to do the job that you're advertising. But I also come with this background that involves a passion, a desire, an enthusiasm to look at sustainability, and employers are going to be looking for that increasingly into the future. So we might initially think on okay, what is the career in sustainability? But I think for most of our graduates, it'll be, what does this sustainability add to existing qualifications I've got? So I think that'll be most broadly appealing to our graduates. And then for a subset of graduates who will be, no, look, I really want sustainability to be my career. That's my core focus. Maybe I'll go around to different businesses and I'll help them increase their sustainability and reduce their environmental footprints. So you'll be like a consultant in that space. So that's perhaps, for me, one of the main areas graduates might, you know, have a really strong interest in sustainability and having broader impact. That's probably one of the bigger opportunities, the bigger spaces. Advising others on how to improve the sustainability of their operations and reduce their environmental footprint. And that can be achieved perhaps more at a lower level as you exit with a diploma of sustainable living. But then in the Bachelor of Science, we also have the major in sustainability. So that's now becoming a more higher professional level qualification.
Thank you.
Great. So I suppose if there's no further,
Oh.
sorry, sorry, Karen, we're a little bit quick to cut you off there. So Karen's asked, how is UTAS helping country town community members and people outside city and town areas with sustainable living and design? Recently, Northwest Tasmania had some years of free green waste removal via their council and tip assistance, which has now been changed. Rural communities are offered rubbish removal, but no FOGO bins or recycling unless it's self-promoted. So in terms of doing us a UTAS as an institution, Karen, or how you can learn more about sort of managing your waste at a home level through the course? Home level, yeah. Chris, did you want to answer that? But I'm guessing it'd be a lot to do with the science of gardening, composting, that type of.
Yeah, that's probably the main
Yeah.
emphasis. And I think it's a really good question, Karen, because again, it's like that original quote from our previous graduate. Everyone puts their plastic in the bin and wheels the bin out to the curb and think that's it. You know, I've done my sustainability job for the day. And the food waste bin is kind of the equivalent of that. But it's sort of like, well, what about all of the emissions of the vehicle coming to collect that bin? And obviously, it's better than it just going straight into landfill. But in many instances, there's an even better solution and a better opportunity, and that's composting on site, putting those nutrients back into your own system. So yeah, that's sort of the more geographically narrow that we can close loops like that, the better for the environment and the lower the impact. So as soon as you rely on economies of scale, so large communities where it's cost effective to do these things, well, that's fine. But then it doesn't work in a small community, as you've highlighted, or it's more difficult to fund or less appealing for local government.
Yeah, that's a great one. So Charlotte, I can see your typing answer as well. So essentially a question about moving into, it says protected areas and conservation. So we do have a Bachelor of Natural Environments and Conservation. Is there any scope in terms of, does the diploma sort of, or the learnings from the diploma or the undergrad cert complement that bachelor at all, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. And the best way I can demonstrate that is as course coordinator for the Diploma of Sustainable Living. I receive emails from students in bachelor's degrees here at UTAS asking for entry, or asking for me to approve entry for them to take DSL units within their bachelor's degrees. So they're actually using the same units for their 3-year bachelor degree, or they're calling from the same units as you would be in the undergraduate certificate and the Diploma of Sustainable Living. So they overlap. You can actually receive credit. So if you do the DSL, some of the units that you take, if you then go in and do the Bachelor of Natural Environment and Wilderness Studies, you can basically get credit for some of those units that are applicable for your bachelor's degree straight away.
Awesome. Thank you. So I guess if there's no further questions, we might wrap it up. So just a reminder that everyone who registered to attend the session this evening will receive a recording of the webinar. That should arrive within a couple of days. And so please just do keep an eye on your emails for that. There is also, very comprehensive unit and course information through the UTAS website, specifically the Diploma of Sustainable Living course page, should you like to have a read up about some of those specific units, i.e. backyard biodiversity. And certainly if you are keen to apply, or you've already applied and you would like to enroll and you would like some assistance, then our future students' contact information will also be included in that email with the recording of this evening's webinar. So please do make a booking and get in touch so that we can assist you. Otherwise, thank you so much, Chris, for hosting this evening, and for Charlotte for answering all of the wonderful questions that we've had. And thank you all for attending and for your engagement and participation in the webinar this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.